Hello everybody. Today I am going to be doing my first conversion video. I am starting a crusade campaign with my Space Wolves. I believe I've mentioned it before. And I had a little thought last night that Assault Intercessors essentially have the same close combat profile as Wolfen without weapons. So today I'll be turning an Assault Intercessor into a Space Wolf Bloodclaw Intercessor. Or you know what? I really don't have a name for them yet, but I love this conversion. I've opted for the Forge World head. I was going to use Mohawks, but as some of you may have seen, if you've seen this on Facebook already, that gun is pretty close. But it's just too cool to pass up, and these heads are worth every penny. I figure I'll give them black hoods to mark the Blackstone of the 13th Company. So let's set those aside. I've chosen Assault Intercessor at random. I just kind of started clipping off bits. If you've watched my assembly videos, you've already seen me clip and clean bits, so I've gone and tried to do that to all of the pieces. I've got my glue, my clippers, a file, my tiny little saw, my clippers, which I already mentioned, and I'm going to flip this plastic glue, and I'll try to go through this step by step. First and easiest thing is the body. Now, we could slap that together, but I want to remove the holster, because if the gun is on top, why has it got an empty holster? So before I assemble that, we are going to do some butchery. What I do is I look for where the holster stops at the model, because we have to shave all of this off and make it look normal, which could be a little difficult. So I'm going to slide my clippers in. I'll try to get this to focus right up to the edge of where the armor starts and give it a snip. You probably heard that go flying. So far, so good. The next thing I'm going to do is look where the holster stops and the armor starts on the side. Give that a snip. Awesome. We have just removed so much time and energy from whittling this down. Now it just looks like a weird little satchel. And we're going to clip that off pretty easily. Heck, you can see right through it. So why don't we use our clippers to snip as much of this off as we can without damaging the bottom of the armor. There we go. Now, if I hold this too close or too far, please let me know. I do watch my own videos, but sometimes it's just a little tricky to tell with the setup how far I really am to get a good view in. So if I wanted to be lazy or just be quick, because, you know, we've got a lot of these new minis, there's a lot to put together. In my case, I've got plenty of time. For a lot of other people, they might not have hours to work on this. We could just whittle and snip little chunks out here and just flatten it down with our X-Acto knife. Make it look smooth, because this is a pretty hidden part of the model. There we go. We should have, there we are, a little ledge down here and a little up there, but from tabletop distance with the backpack on, it's not that bad. So, if you're in a hurry, or you don't really like using the X-Acto knife like this, or the files, this should be tabletop quality. You've removed the pistol holster. Come on, there we go. I am now going to try to whittle down those details. So what I like to do in this case is, instead of going up first into it with the blade and slicing, I try to draw a line down to the depth I want it to be. This can be tricky, and you really want to be comfortable with your knife before you start doing this, because if you go too hard too fast, this is thin, you can go right through, slice your finger open, so be very careful. I just want to take it and slowly drag back and forth. I don't know if that shows up, but there's a very thin line, and then next to that line, I'm going to dig in and pull up. and do the same dig in and pull up. Now if your line's deep enough, there we go, you should see right when you pull up, it just pops right out. And we've already started to find that little ledge. So I'm going to continue to kind of just pull up a little and smooth out that belt. There we go. And the biggest thing I'm trying to do when I do this is eliminate visible edges where they shouldn't be. Already you can see a pretty decent improvement to this. There's still a little bit of a problem, and I'm just going to continue, this time much more gently, pushing down, and then right when I hit that spot, pull up. I'll do the reversed drag with the tip of my blade to try to smooth all this out. All right. You know, I'd say, let's see if we can drag our blade through there, get any dust that's clogged up, and then go from the top as well. It's a little hard to tell on super fine detail until you prime it. Now I airbrush prime, so it really brings out all the tiny scratches. Sometimes, and pardon my fingernails, they're extra long right now, I'll kind of scratch, and if I feel really rough bumps, I'll keep trying to smooth it with the back of my blade. Sometimes you feel a big bump and you just gently slice at it. Awesome, check that out. We've got that bottom ridge pretty much done. Ooh, now let's move on to the top one. I'm going to repeat the steps, but it's a little trickier because we don't have as much room to work with. So in this case, I'm going to draw a slice down on the top and the bottom. So right where the belt hits, there we go, and at the top. And then I'll take my blade in the midpoint, slowly slice down and pull up on both sides. You should get a satisfying, I think you might have heard that little snap. All right, there we go. From where I pulled up and broke, oh, my door's open, there's a cat. 1 second. Hi, Scrap. Apologies, that was Scrap. He was sleeping in the window. Where were we? Okay, here we go. That initial snap, I've already got most of it completed, but I'm going to continue to just kind of go down and pull up. And if I feel like I'm creating a slope or curve, because at the end of the day, that's what you're doing, is you're curving it out, I'll redo that initial line down and then pop it out and see if I can create a little 90-degree angle down there, because that's what we're looking for. Now it feels like I've still got a little bump on the belt, so I'll try to slice or sand that down. I'm going to blow on this off camera a little to get out all the dust. It doesn't look perfect. If I wanted perfect, I'd probably get like green stuff and learn how to use it really well. But it looks great from a distance, and when it's painted and we can't see, oh hey, listen. There's still a really hard edge right there that we would be able to see. So I'll try to even that out. A lot of this is feeling the blade twitch. You know you're done when you don't feel it twitch at all when it hits a rough surface. There we go. All right. And then along the edge, there's a lot of excess buildup. I'll just try to smooch that out with the back of the blade. Okay. So, next, we assemble this part. We've done this before. This is easy. We put a little glue and all the contact points. Come on, glue. Don't embarrass me. There you go. And again, I won't be using the included head for lore reasons with my Space Wolves, especially what I'm going to be calling my Primaris Blood Claws. There we go. Now at this point, when I have the body and I'm doing any pose that might have a non-instructed change, such as repositioning the arms, I like to apply it to the base. Now, in a lot of my minis, that means doing a pin to the base, basic glue, and sometimes even a magnet. One of my favorite conversions ever, I magnetized the arms because I wanted to paint everything separate. I ended up keeping them magnetized because he's the demon prince and the arms are big long tentacles that would break easy. Excuse me. So it made it easier to transport. Alright, that's all we're going to do for the body right now. Actually, you know what? Let's be a little adventurous. Let's clip off these pegs. Just get rid of them. There we go. Now we have no barriers and no constraints on how we pose these arms. We could take any arms we want and pop them on this mini, just like it's another Primaris. Awesome. Perfect. So, now we get into the fun part. I have 2 of these wolfen claws. There we go. These are from the wolfen kit, and you may have never seen them unless you own the wolfen kit, in which case you may have only glanced at them. Wolfen do not have mandatory thunder hammers. They actually can have no war gear whatsoever. In that case, they're strength user, AP 1, damage 1. Ta-da! Strength user, AP 1, damage 1. So I'm going to start with the easier hand, this one. This hand is easier because it's got a blank outside. If you've noticed, all the Indomitus stuff has a special arm guard here. Now, later down the line, I might try to shave off this, I actually don't know what that is, skull and cross? I don't know if there's a word for it. If there is, please let me know. And put something more Space Wolfy, like a rune on it. But for now, let's cut this bad boy off. I love the opportunity to save this gun for another conversion. Here's one I already clipped. So this is where I think I'm going to bring out my little X-Acto saw. If you don't own one of these or a hobby saw, you can take this bad boy and just snip, snip, snip. Just line it up. There's a little edge right here where the wrist is. Make sure your clippers are right in that ledge. And it's on both sides. Well, it's not really on this side, but you want to get right at the base of the hand and give it a really quick snip. You'll end up with a mostly sheer surface that you can then slice down or sand down. Now this is where things might get hard to see because I can't do this holding up. You know what? Let's try this out. I'm going to take my paint, my Warhammer Citadel paint mason jar. I think it's supposed to be a cup, but these are great for, paint cups. Set this down here like it's an executioner stand, and I'm going to lie this as flat as possible, line my blade up where I want it to be, and gently start to saw. The reason I want to go as gently as possible in the beginning is because if you've ever sawed wood, you know that the pullback can sometimes grab the wood and yank it out of your hands. It's not till you really get in there that you can start to dig deep. Plus, I'm holding it in a really awkward spot. Let's try this. There we go. Now, it looks like a tool that's really brutal because it's a saw, but it's a finesse tool. You might see it bend a little. It's not the strongest blade, but it's a very thin. I'm going to try to go as much to the bottom as possible. I don't know if you can tell, I've already gotten about halfway through. Now I'm going to flip it because I'd love to salvage this whole thing. You never know when you're going to want one of these bolt guns. Plus, it's really cool, and if I just have one on a hand, I could use it as a reference for 3D modeling, and then 3D print a full-size one. Stop going in from the bottom, because if I continue from the side, I'll eventually cut off the back tip. It's still on there pretty good. Now I can really start to put some elbow grease into it. Okay. Now it looks like we are right up to the base of that gun and the thumb. So this is where I'm going to take my normal knife and just see if I can cut in there. Whoops, there we go. All right, we have salvaged the weapon, nearly perfect condition, and attached. So who knows, maybe we'll get a fully customizable kit in the future, and whoops, they forgot to include one of these. Or, I don't know. They're just nice to have. I love bits. All right, blow on that. See, that's a pretty smooth surface. I've got my square file out. I'm gonna grab a flat file, round file, triangle file, flat file. Move my paint pot back. Now you don't necessarily need to file. This is a pretty smooth surface, and I found that glue loves to adhere to rough surfaces. Just gently slice off that extra bit from where the blade cut, and give it a light sand until I have a nice flat surface. I'm not applying much pressure, just like with the saw. All I want is to see no light coming through. Well, I guess no light, but sometimes you can see gaps. And again, it's kind of a feel of the tool. I know that sounds odd, but when the file gives a certain amount of resistance, I can tell it's where I want it to be. So, now we've got our wolfen hand and our arm. Oh, that's the wrong one. Boop. Here we go. We could just slap it on and glue it, but there's a little nubbin on the back of there of slag, plastic, I don't know, the gate. And it's really hard to clip that when it's such a delicate piece. So I'm going to file that down as well. If this was a resin conversion, like I was using a Forge World model as the base, oh, here it is. I take my hobby drill and I buy on Amazon assorted sets of tungsten jeweler's drill bits. You can see a lot of these are missing because when I started using them, let's just say tungsten is very brittle, and sometimes I forget about that. So, luckily they're like $5 a pack, and they get extraordinarily thin. Highly, highly, highly recommended, because they just eat through plastic. So I'd take one of those really thin ones, drill a little bit in here, drill a little bit in there, position it right, see how it looks, and then glue it with some Gorilla Glue, because plastic glue won't work. Luckily for us, we're doing plastic. Okay, so, problem. Because we don't have a peg, we have all this artistic freedom on how we want this arm to go. Now, I'd love to just say, I want it to be like that. Glue it, call it good. But, I've got one nearby. I was going to say, I don't have a good reference for what this mini looks like with its arms stock. So let's dig up the Assault Intercessor that I'm basing this on. Where are you? Here we go. Here's the Assault Intercessor. That's actually a pretty cool pose. So we could have left the arms on, but I'm going to clean up the other arm and then see how it fits. And actually, before that, I'm going to glue this Space Wolf grenade launcher together that I'm using as the assault bolter, or the bolt pistol, just to get this bit out of the way. It's extremely tiny. I don't want to lose it. And it does take a little bit to dry because it's so small. The connection point isn't that great. And we're going to be manhandling it a little bit, so you want to make sure that this is properly cured. Because nothing is quite as bad. There we go. We want those bottoms to line up pretty well. Nothing's quite as bad as working on conversion, thinking, okay, this is great, on to the next step, and then a part falls off. Glue was 80% dry. Now you gotta scrap off that partially finished glue and start over. All right, tough part. How much of this sword can we salvage? We may not need another Astartes chainsword, we might, Or we might start orcs and want to put a whole bunch of Astartes chainswords as wings for an orc. You never know. The possibilities are endless. This one's really easy to salvage. I'm not going to try to salvage the guard because it's right up on the hand. So I'm just going to get my blade right there. Try not to clip the wrist. And snip it off. Looks like I did get a little part of the wrist. But I actually got a good chunk of the sword save too. A little bit of the guard. I'll set that aside. All right. Again, I'm going to try to do as much work with my clippers as possible. Be very careful not to hit the wrist. Now, I didn't clip all the way through this because of fear of hitting the wrist or the guard. And then clip straight down. I try not to blind clip. What that means is I've only seen where I'm clipping on this side. You really want to know what's on the opposite side of your clippers. That looks like a pretty solid clip. Ta-da! So, that landed in my hair. It flew up, bounced off the poster, and landed in my hair. Yeah, you might need like a net if you're going to start doing this because stuff goes everywhere. Okay, now we have a stump, but the unfortunate part is the stump is based around where that guard is. So a little bit more clipping, and now I've kind of got an angled stump. Stump is bad because hand would be coming out at a weird angle. We need to shave off all of this extra hand bit. But this could be hard. Let's just get these big chunks out. I'm going to shave it down until it lines up with the arm guard. What could be hard about this is that we have a defined piece of armor and we have to assume the thickness of said armor. So I'm going to try to make this smooth. And then I'm going to have to outline, either in my head or on the model, how I'm going to cut this. Now, there are a lot of ways to do that. I think today might be a pretty good day to try out the Dremel. Whoops, there we go. Oh, I just lost focus. Because the Dremel could easily go in and dig all that out. Man, I can't get this thing to focus at all. Hold on. All right. So I'll show it off with the X-Acto knife, how I plan on doing things, and then I'll do another one of these arms with the Dremel so we can see how that goes. So if your blade is sharp enough, you can probably draw a basic little outline. And then, with that guide in mind, keep digging in with the blade. Just a few times, because once we have a defined edge, this becomes really easy. And now, I've kind of made a defined edge. I can see it. I'm not sure if it shows up well on camera. I'm going to take the blade and the tip. I'm going to try to get just up to my edge and pull up. So I'm doing the same technique in a much more delicate manner that I did when I cleaned up the belt. And this is where I really like this little X-Acto knife holder because I can grip it very tightly and I have a lot of control with my palm and every finger touches the blade. Well, the handle. So just absolutely control out the butt. All right, I've started to create an edge. So I'm going to take a different handle and cut, or a different approach, and try to cut deeper. Now that I have my edge, I'm going to try to round it a little. It's going to look really rigid and bland at first, but I'm going to keep doing this until I get the inside. See here, there we go. Flat with the outside, because I don't want a curve. I want this to be flat right here. I need to learn how to focus this thing better. So I'm just going to delicately continue, take out fraction of millimeter layers at a time, very slowly and very carefully, by pushing down and pulling up, creating another crease or cut, and pulling it out. And as we get lower, you can see I'm almost just shaving that top portion. If I lose definition of my edge, I can go back and recut it by just pulling around. There we go. Where I want the edge to be. It looks like I've done a little damage to the outside, but not too much. It's good to every once in a while stop and look at the bit from the outside. If it still looks good, you're doing a great job. If it doesn't, you got battle damage, and that means you're also doing a great job. You're making a unique miniature. There will never be another one exactly like it. It's an amazing piece of art. All right, I'm gonna do one more, or maybe two more. We're just trying to dig deeper in here. Get these really thin, like tissue paper thin layers out. And then try to redefine my edge. Now, the inside of this is gonna look pretty nasty. I can't clean this up with the X-Acto knife. There we go. Like I have the back part, but we've done an okay job, and that is where this hand will rest. If I don't like it at that angle, instead of digging down deeper, I'll just shave right here. If I want it to be outward, we can do that. We can do anything. All right. So he's running, kind of, which way is this guy going? He's running and he's about to take a slash. Normally his chainsword is kind of in front of him. Ooh. So I'm gonna put both of these hands up. Man, this is where I normally use magnets or a pin. And what do I think would look good for the pose? All right, I think I got something. I'll take this piece and I'm gonna glue it. Without the peg, it pretty much fits, but it slides around a lot. So I'm gonna pop this guy right here. Take a little plastic glue. Actually, the plastic glue right here. Ah, see why it's sliding. There's this thin lip on the inside. It's made to go around the peg, but I removed the peg. And I removed that little base with it when I sanded or sliced down where the peg was. You can see the peg used to be oval. Yeah, now it slides a bit more, but I used to kind of feel it would slide off. Now I've got a better feel for it, and I've also increased the surface area for the glue. I'm going to apply my glue. And I'm gonna get that feel and hold. At this point, you could also apply the mini, the head of the mini, and define the direction it's looking. Do you want him to look straight forward? Do you want to be looking with his torso? Where do you want the mini's focus to be at? Looking over to the left, looking behind. Oh, hey, there goes the enemy. Bye-bye. A lot of times I'll save heads for later. Most of my big conversions are HQs, elites, or individual characters. But this is a troop choice I'll be doing a few of. So I think I'll go ahead and skip waiting. And 1 second. Okay. I'm actually going to take this opportunity to glue the other arm. And while those dry, I'll glue the head. And here I also have that little ledge I'm gonna pop off and try to sand down. I'm not so sure about this lip here. So getting a feel for how the Mini assembles is really important. It doesn't really want to get a flat hold, so what I'm going to do is just try to flatten out where I'm trying to get it to hold. The bigger, flatter surface, the better. That feels pretty good. I got another cat in here. Life with cats. I love it. Now the lip goes all the way up under the shoulder, and I'll try to take that out as much as possible. And I almost did a cut where I was pushing really hard into my finger. Try to avoid the blade of one of these knives ever being pointed directly at a finger or limb. Getting close is one thing, but this is plastic, it can get slippery, you never know what could happen. It's better to be safe than sorry. This is very delicate and potentially dangerous work. Okie dokie. Yeah, that feels a bit better. I definitely feel like there's more surface area. Let's get some of that glue on. Come on, glue. Just went out and helped my wife bring the groceries in, so there we go. My glue got a little clogged. Because I don't know exactly where the surface is touching, I try to spread it out a little. And then gently find that spot where it felt good. I think that pose looks pretty good too. He's running with one arm forward, one arm back, really getting into it. All right, now I'm gonna do the easy thing of deciding which way the head's going to point. Using the 30K Space Wolf heads. There we are. Blob of Gorilla Glue. Pop that on. And look at it from every angle. And make sure the eyes point where the foe would be. Very important thing about converting minis is getting a good profile. I'm trying to remember what Games Workshop called it when you're taking photos. The heroic pose. Old Games Workshop minis, the heroic pose was a little bland, you know. I don't know, I've showed it off before, but definitely a Forge World callback to that old YMCA heroic pose. New minis, let me just reach over here, as I've shown off to demonstrate, have much better heroic poses. Grimnar, for example, he's got the cape in the back. His axe is held high, similar to the other two holding their sword high, but he's looking to it. He's looking up. He's victorious. He's standing on the battlefield victoriously. Any other minis you might convert, all I did on this guy was give him a power fist, but I tried to make it like he's beckoning forward. And in this case, I tried to make it look like he's slashing down. Battle pose. I always want to try to make my minis look like they're in motion. All right, how's that head coming along? Head's good. Arms are probably doing pretty good. Let's see if this guy's dry. Dry enough. Let's get these hands on. All right, these are really fiddly little bits. Tweezers would probably help here. I've got some somewhere, but they're not the best, and I need to replace them. I've been using them to do some detail work on my 3D prints, so they're a little damaged. So with this pose, I want this claw to be a little bit more forward-reaching. Honestly, I might opt for a different claw. Where did I put all these things? I've set aside a lot of wolfen claws. Here we go. This one's reaching out more. So I'm going to drop that one. Do a light sand to the bottom of this one. Because in this pose, it looks like he's running towards something. He'll be reaching out towards it. He hasn't just attacked, he's going to attack. And again, to get that angle I want, you can see there's a big gap right there. I'm going to go about this the easy way and just clip off that back ledge. All right. Now that's shrunk that gap, but it's still there, and I don't want any gap. So now I've defined a new angle where this bit will rest, and I'm going to use my file to try to sand down to get close to that angle. Slowly and gently. In this case, I guess it's kind of quick and gentle, but it's important not to apply too much pressure. All right. That's what I'm talking about. The next thing I'm going to look at now that the angle's right is how well does this claw fit up into the mini. And also from this angle, I am seeing what will be the hardest mold lines to remove ever. I'm not sure if they show on camera, they're so small. On each side of the finger, there's a thin bit of mold line. After the hand is firmly on the model, I'll try to tackle that. So how well does this match? Oh wow, that's lucky. It actually lines up with that armor pretty dang well. The outline I made that I cut into. If it didn't, instead of going back and working on this a lot, because I kind of like the thickness of that armor, I'd shave off, and I'll do it a little to show you, some of the detail on the base of the hand. So all of right here is going to be glued out of sight. You won't be able to see it. It's a little rigid and bumpy. You know, let's get the file. Just give it a light filing. Increase that surface area. There we go. I'll put a droplet of glue on the bottom here. And as I switch the hand in my hands, glue it. Whoa. Oh, I've gotten everything upside down. And I dropped it. Okay, yeah, this is where tweezers would be great. So if you have a pair, grab them. There we are. Just kind of setting it down, resting it, and gently nudging it into the place. My hands are a bit large for this, so I'm going to use my X-Acto knife and just tap it. Apply a little pressure. Just be using the back of the blade. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Oh yeah, on my camera I can definitely see those mold lines. That's gotta get fixed. That's one down. And the second one is, oh no, it wasn't glued. Exactly what I was talking about. This arm wasn't glued all the way and it just started to bend a little. See? Woo! Ah, it got moved to a spot where the surface area probably, there we go. I see what I did wrong on this. I forgot to check the back, and you can see that it's kind of half melted. I'm just gonna put a nice little glob of plastic glue in there. Hold it for a bit, and I'm gonna pause and hold this and let it dry. Okie dokie. That's a bit more dry now. I've also noticed that there's a little bump on this, and I'm just going to try to sand that down. Whoop, some cat hair got here. But this one's a lot easier. We take the hand we want. We see if it's the angle we want it to be at. We don't have any armor or anything to work with. In this case, it helps if I hold the mini upright to really get a sense for the pose that he's in. And you know what? I kind of like that. I like that look. So I'm going to give this one or two more little soft filing runs. I believe we already filed down that, so we get kind of a rough texture on the bottom for the plastic glue to really get in there. Little itty bitty bit of plastic glue. And very carefully find the center. Let's try to, flip it upside down. Because then gravity won't be fighting against us. I'll set the hand down. Make sure that it lays flat. You might have just heard one of my cats meow. Oh yeah, check that pose out. That's nice. I'm gonna flip it back and just make sure that it's as centered as possible. Now what can really stink and frustrate me is I'll be doing these minor little adjustments and accidentally, knock it off. Like, oh, I've got it in 99% of the right place and I could leave it here and no one would know any better. But I've got to change it. And then I change it and ruin it. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, that looks awesome. So it looks like the plastic glue is holding against gravity pretty well. I'm going to set this guy aside and we're going to work on the backpack on its own and let those hands dry. So we can get rid of this hand. Well, not get rid of it. Put it to the side with the rest of my Space Wolf bits, or wolfen. Now we have the wolfen grenade launcher that will be acting as our heavy bolt pistol. We need to drill that barrel. That is an ugly barrel. Long time ago, when I started, I saw a suggestion that was to draw a cross on the barrel of the gun and then drill in there. I tried that for a while and ended up doing crosses just, you could see the cross lines, they were off center. So what I do now is I just try to point to the center with my X-Acto knife. Find as close to the center as you can, and you can try the line. That technique is a very thin X-Acto cut down the halfway point. And then you do another one across, and where they meet, put your X-Acto point and twist a bit. I don't know if you ever did whittling or screwed up desks at school with scissors, where you just kind of stuck the scissors in the side and twisted. But you want to create a small indent. Oh, it wasn't dry all the way. Curse you, plastic glue. Close enough. Very tiny, but enough definition to where the very thin tip of your drill bit can take purchase. And then you drill. Now, I always start drilling very gently because it's going to expand that hole. And this is the step where you can tell if you've got it off center, because no one likes googly eye bolters, especially googly eye storm bolters. So luckily we don't have two barrels. And pulling over, this was before the time the game, well, I guess they don't do it. I was going to say they drilled barrels for their minis, but looking at all these minis I have, save for the Forge World one, none of them have barrels. Well, let me check how big this is. I think it's got it written 1.5 millimeter drill bit is what I use for this grenade hole. In my various assortment of drill bits, I actually bought several 1.1s because that's the 0.1 millimeter larger than the size pinning wire I use. You can see the black one in there. This is a 3 millimeter. It's the size of magnets I prefer. And then I don't really use these often. That's where I learned that I like the 1.1 millimeter. This was very fine ones for details. You can actually see the tip on this one is broken, which might have happened just by looking at it with how thin and brittle it is. All right, so I'm gonna keep gently yet firmly drilling. You don't want to apply too much pressure, because if you do, these tungsten bits will take purchase and yank the thing out of your hand. If you get these, don't ever put them in a Dremel. It's a great way to bust your fingers up because these will bite into the plastic, yank it out of whatever you're holding, and start spinning it like a crazy person. And I learned that the hard way with 4 very bruised and bleeding fingers. It was rough. I think it was like a dreadnought, and I took that 3mm and just kind of jammed it in, and the whole plastic dreadnought started spinning around like crazy. If you do very slow speed, but that's why I have the hand drill. It works great. I do all my magnetizing with the hand drill. The only actual drilling I use with my Dremel, I use standard wood bits. They come in Imperial. I live in the US, but I buy so many things from overseas in bulk that I go with metric. I have found it's a lot cheaper to get 3mm by 1mm rare earth magnets and wait like a month for them to arrive from wherever than it is to go to the store and get 1/8 inch for ridiculous prices. I think the last time I bought them, I bought 300 for like $20, and they were great. Because really, all I need them to do is hold up a weapon. Oh hey, that one's not glued. That's a bad example. Ta-da! That's a character I'm just working on. Really haven't touched him in a year, but I've got a ton of little side projects I've done. All right, so the next thing is on the bottom, we have 2 pegs, big oval pegs that were made to fit into the top of the wolfen's backpack. We want to get rid of those. On the base, bam, easy. And that's easy because it's a big flat surface. On the belt, though, you just kind of got to wing it. Hope for the best. Now I cut into one of the bullets there, so I'm going to cut off that excess. And then here's where I wish I had more time to let this dry. I know I can pause the video, I've got infinite time. But I'm going to file these together because I want them to be exactly the same height off the ground. Build, plate, whatever. Exactly the same height off of what I'm going to glue them to. There we are. Now, there's this kind of little lip in there. It's very thin. I'm going to slice it off because we're going to be applying this to a rounded surface. So we would love to have as much surface area as possible, but to do that, we need to minimize the surface area up here. I know that sounds counterproductive, but I think I can demonstrate how it works. So right now, if we pop this on, I've got these 2 little Indomitus bumps. I think they're on the old, yeah, they're on Primaris bumps, I guess. They pop up all over the place. I'm gonna just yank them off. Blammo, done. Now we can actually place the grenade launcher somewhere. Pink. But we got a problem. Well, I think it's a bit of an issue. If I was to glue it here, there'd be some gaps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand the top of this a little bit flat. Now I don't want to put all the responsibility of a good contact on the power pack, because that would also result in a flat power pack. Oops. And that's why I've trimmed some of this down as much as possible, because I really want to fit the curvature of the power pack. Just getting a little bit of excess off. And then I have a cylindrical file, which I don't find uses for that often, but I do here. I'm going to very gently file straight up and down. Man, it's really tough because I didn't get that piece to dry all the way. There we go. What I'm doing here is trying to make a very thin concave surface so that we minimize the amount of gap we have. More contact area means more spot for glue to weld to itself. All right. And I'm not going to glue the backpack on. I'm just going to set it on because I might need to pull it off later. And now I'm going to try to glue the gun. I've sanded them both, filed them both, so it's nice, smooth, yet rigid surface. Apply a little bit of glue to both the ammo belt and the bottom of the grenade launcher. Here we go. And try to center it between those two lines. Space wolves haven't heard of tinnitus, and it's because they can't hear. They're really good at smelling, though. And they can see why kids love Cinnamon Toast Crunch. All right. So now I am trying to get it so it doesn't point directly at his head. Actually, I think I'll scoot it over a bit. I said I was going directly in the center, but I'm going to move it to the side just because there's nothing quite like having this great conversion you're super proud of. You bring it to the game store and someone goes, "Oh, that's dumb. Well, what about this? What about that?" Like you have a really cool jump pack lord without a helmet. And everyone says, "Won't his hair get caught in that thing?" And you're just like, "Ugh, come on, just appreciate it a little bit." So actually I was going to put a jump pack on this guy. And I did. And I looked at it and I thought, his beard's just going to get whoosh, right up into the back of that thing. So I'll figure him out later. Now, because I moved that, I've got a little plastic glue drying right there. I'm just going to let it go. I might cut it or sand it. But we've gone and made a really cool little conversion. This makes me reminiscent of the old days when there was a relic, I want to say 5th edition, called Mark of the Wolfen. And all it did was give you an additional D6 attacks because you let the wolfen take over and make you crazy. I'm going to go ahead and pop this off. I'm happy with it, so I'm going to apply glue to it. There we go. Now, I said I was going to try the Dremel on this part, and I totally am. I'll set this to the side, clean up my workspace a little bit, and let's do a Dremel practice run. See if I'm able to work that thing in a good enough way that it's still visible. I try to get all the bits into my hand, all the clippings, because you never know when, first off, something might be useful. Second off, when you accidentally swept a useful bit, or an important bit, onto the ground, into the trash, wherever. All right, I'm going to grab bit 37. You're the chosen one today, 37. And just like before, I'm going to try to clip this off. Clean as much as I can with the clippers. And do it quick and dirty until you really need to add some fine tuning. All right, that looks great. Let me grab this Dremel. Here we go. My trusty Dremel bits. Here we are. Now, I'm going to be using one of the spherical ones. They're just a preference. I find them to be really useful for just about anything, really. You can drill straight down with them. You can bore out areas. Sometimes I'll even smooth really stubborn pieces. Now, highly recommend getting safety glasses. Boom, putting them on. I've had my fair share of random bits of resin and everything fly towards my face, and I just don't take precautions, but I also gotta look really cool when I wear them. These are polarized, which sometimes acts weird, sometimes doesn't. Usually I do this in my painting booth, which is exceptionally bright, and the glasses are a great help. All right. I'm at about speed 4 here. And let's see. All right, let's turn this off. I want to get a good, nice view for all of you to see what's going on. So I'm gonna bring out that cup again, and you know what? I don't like that shine. Put one of my 40K coasters on it, and hope I don't ruin it. Speed 1, speed 2, speed 3, which is actually 024. All right. As before, I'm trying to go gentle. I wanted to find a plane to work on for that wrist. So I feel like I've got a nice little flat plane there, and now I'm going to bore inward. I'm not pushing hard, I'm taking it slow, letting the drill bit do all the work for me. Occasionally, you gotta stop, brush it clean. Now, I've got these little wire cleaners. Actually, this one's kind of plastic wire. Really good for cleaning off all that stray bits. So, okay. I've got a little spike poking up here. That's gonna be really hard to take care of with the Dremel. So I'm gonna go with my knife, smooth out the armor, so I can more clearly see where I want the armor to end and the hand to begin. Pretty good. One downside is it does kind of make these really fine bits of plastic go everywhere. Face mask probably isn't a bad idea. I'm sure we all have plenty of those these days. All right. That doesn't look too shabby. We've definitely defined the armor though. Whoops. But let me grab a wolfen hand and see if it sets in there flat. Ooh, this one needs trimmed. Look at me, being lazy, saying I prepared everything. And then I go when it's not ready. Boom. Let go. Cousin It. No, that's not Cousin It. What was the hand? It's not bad. Not bad at all. I'll try to clean it up a little on the edges. And now, if I wanted that to be a very flat, hard surface with a hard corner, I'd switch over to this big bad boy. And I'll give that a shot right now. I use this when I need to make a real big magnet hole. For example, a Reaver Titan with Reaver Titan size magnets, which are out of sight, out of mind because they are dangerous big. Let's see here. Where is... There we go. The adapter. And pop this guy in. I didn't use this one from the start because it's not as good as going down. And it's a bit bigger. So I'll try to demonstrate this in a view that you can see, where I use this flat tip to define my flat surface. Whoa! Well, that's what happens if you're careless. I pushed a little bit too hard, it bit into the plastic, and yanked it out of my hand. Really gotta respect the tools and respect the danger you're putting yourself in when you use them. Luckily, my hands are okay. All right, let's brush that a little. What is that? Grab the wire one maybe? Yeah, that works a bit better. All right. Now, you can see a very clearly defined flat circular area. We could drill in there, pop a magnet in. I probably could have gone further. And we could set that claw in nicely. If I hadn't just, I really should have waited to put all that up, but oh well. Give that a little cut, extend to that rim. Come on. Sorry, I'm holding it way too close to the camera. And I'm going to do the same thing where I clip this back piece down. Yeah, that's a good fit. You know, I'll glue that right now. I'm really happy with that fit, and I'll just make it work with the next mini. We'll figure it out. We always do. Then, like before, I'm going to try to look at it from every side. Oh yeah, you can definitely, whoa. You can see a chunk that Dremel, that drill bit took out on the bottom of the armor. Someone got some battle damage. Try to smooth that out a little for painting. There we go. We got one more wolfen arm, ready to go for the next one. All right. We have taken the bits to create one assault intercessor and made, wait, that's the, yep. No, that's the wrong one. Where'd that guy go? There we go. An assault intercessor. I believe we might have done him in the Joe Builds Warhammer, and we have converted it into a Space Wolf, Primaris Wolfen, Primaris Crazed Bloodclaw, General Pissed Off Scary Space Wolf. I find the claws to be a lot more menacing, and they've got that almost chaos, but you don't want to challenge it on them because they beat up the Grey Knights a few times. Okay, thank you very much for watching. A little preview of what I'm going to try to do next time is I've got a Blade Guard Lieutenant in my Crusade roster, and I was testing out some stuff on this one because I wanted to have one done for like a comparison video. But you know, it is just hard to get a shield that's nearly that large. Luckily, I had one wolfen shield left. So, next time, we will be making an axe-wielding, Thunderhammer-having Blade Guard Lieutenant. Because you know what? I think that just looks so much cooler. Space Wolves don't lead with Volkite. Space Wolves lead with axes. You guys have a good evening and have fun.